Okay, I'm going to admit people. So welcome to this knowledge share. We're delighted that we've got ICG member Maria Boyle to run this session for us. But before we begin, I just want to say a big thank you to this session's sponsor, which is Perspective Research Services, who specialise in data collection solutions involving qualitative, face-to-face, CATI and online approaches, both domestically in the UK and internationally, and both with consumers and B2B audiences. So please feel free to contact Jade On, Commercial Director of Perspective Research Services, for any questions or RFQs. And if you don't have her details, you can always come to me and I will give them to you. So straight over now to Maria Boyle.
Thank you very much. So I will just do a share screen. You all see that okay?
Yeah.
Fab. Okay, so thank you very much for the invite. This came about because I was helping behind the scenes on the new ICG logo and looking at colours and things. And so in the course of that discussion, I was invited to come and chat in the knowledge share. So is it about half an hour and then questions at the end? So I hope that's okay with everybody. Right, so just a little bit about me in case you don't know who I am. So basically, it sounds very dramatic, a life in comms, but I started off as a media planner, communications planner in ad agencies and media independents, and about 15 years in that, and then in 2001 I moved into qual research, and about 17 years ago, in 2007, I became a freelancer. And at the same time, I realized being a freelancer, there was feast or famine involved. So I did an intensive autumn of training in applied colour psychology for business applications and started Maria Boyle Colour alongside my qual work around that time. And then more recently, I've been studying semiotics with Chris Arning, which was a perfect extension to understanding colour and culture and visual language and so on. So no, don't worry, I'm not going to bore you to death with theory, I hope. But I just wanted to share with you that this is the 7 principles, if you will, on the colour effect system that I learned and have been practicing. It was developed by Angela Wright, and it recognises the links between patterns of colour and patterns of human behaviour, which, with my qual head on, just sounded absolutely fascinating. And interestingly, I was led to this, finding this course by a friend who at the time was working at Pfizer, who mentioned it because Angela had gone in to talk to them about some product packaging and using the psychology of colour with that. So it has a lot of applications. So briefly, you know, the 7 principles are: each hue affects distinct psychological modes. The psychological effects of colour are universal. Every shade, tone or tint can be classified into one of 4 colour groups. Number 4, every colour will harmonise with every other colour in the same group. Number 5, all humanity can be classified into one of 4 personality types. And number 6, each personality type has a natural affinity with one colour group. And 7, response to the colour schemes is influenced by personality type. Now, I'm not expecting you to fully follow that, and hopefully over the next few slides, I will start to bring this to life a little bit for you. Just to say that although the original classifications were done by Angela Wright by eye, and classifying colours by eye is what she then taught us all to do intensively over that autumn, which I can do. But this has also been analysed by the Colour and Imaging Institute at the University of Derby, where they did in fact find mathematical correlations between the colours in the 4 groups. So what they found was that all the colors in each group had a same range of tint and tone and shade. So they are mathematically related. So for the more cynical out there, I suppose that just sort of proves it with science. But I feel very passionate about it because I apply it every day and see it every day in action. And there's also been further studies at the University of Derby and University College London. So if you're interested in any of those papers, I can push you in the right direction. They're all online. But anyway, let's get some more interesting stuff. So let me see why it's not moving. Oh, right, perfect. So this is a quick slide to highlight that the psychological effects of colour are universal, and that in fact colour symbolism is different. The reason I mention this is that everyone always brings this up. Oh, you know, I hate green, or green means this in one culture and something else in another culture. And that is absolutely correct and should obviously also be taken into account. Those sorts of feelings or knowledge around symbolism or cultural colour is a very much a conditioned and learned response, which is very different to colour psychology and the thing that I'm talking to you about, which is 80% subconscious. It's something that we do every day. If you think about it, you know, we're not only bombarded by all the messages from advertising and social media and everything else that's going on, but colour is around us 24/7. And so we are constantly, our brains are constantly processing it. But most of the time we're not aware of doing that, because otherwise we'd probably go crazy. So colour symbolism is conditioned, it's a learned response, and it comes from conscious associations. And I use the white flag here as an example of this learned and cultural association. So in war, it's the flag of truce or surrender. For Buddhists, the white flag represents purity. For archaeologists, white flags mark out the excavation area, so it means something very different to them. And at sea, a white flag is a sign of neutrality. Okay, and then one final slide just to talk about the expression of light, or what, you know, the science of color. So it is an expression of light. So light is color, color is light, and it's a property of the light reflected from objects. And the reason I'm talking about the science thing is just to partly explain why it's a physiological reaction in the body. So the color that we see is a property of the light that's reflected from objects, whether that be a human being, whether it be your phone, whether it be a plant or a pen. Everything is reflecting color. So it's not a property of the object themselves. In fact, what the color that it releases or that you see is the color that it doesn't absorb. But anyway, but it creates a physiological effect because, you know, as you remember from school, the light comes into our eye, it strikes a cone, it triggers a chemical reaction. This creates electrical messages which are sent to the brain. So the hypothalamus and the pituitary gland are involved, which involve governing lots of physiological functions, metabolism, appetite, temperature, nervous system, etc. So light or color is not just a visual stimulus, but it creates a physiological change, and which is also creating an emotional experience. So different wavelengths of light trigger different feelings, and our brain is then trying to interpret the light it receives. So onto this color effects theory and applied color psychology. So it's made up of two things: color psychology and color harmony. The color psychology aspect is I suppose the least contentious part. It's been covered by philosophers and scientists since the world began, probably. It's around understanding the meaning of individual hues and how they affect moods and emotions. So, you know, what various colours represent and what they mean to people. The colour harmony is, if you like, the more the new theory that Angela Wright came up with, which is about how all colours relate to one of 4 families of colour, and how each colour family has their own personality and characteristics. And together, this is what gives us the applied colour psychology. So I'm just going to do a quick quiz at this point. I'm not expecting you to shout out, but you can have a think in your heads as I pose the question, and I'll tell you the answer. Just looking for my page, sorry about that. So the colour, if I ask you, what is the colour most visible in daylight? I don't know if you have a little think about which colour you think the body is most able to see in daylight. That colour is yellow, if you think about high-vis jackets, which then adds a bit of fluorescence so that you can see them at night. Which colour is the most restful for the eye to look at? Have a little think, which is the most restful for the eye? And that colour is green. And that's because it's in the middle of the colour spectrum, so the eye doesn't have to adjust itself. So, you know, as you probably know, if you're a bit stressed or you're tired in your eyes or your head, it's good to just take a break, go in the garden, look at something green, be in nature, as it relaxes the body and relaxes the eye. The colour of danger in nature. Don't know what you think the colours of danger are. So in nature, they are naturally yellow and black together, which is a warm yellow and a strong black. So if you think about a wasp, that's a perfect example of danger. And a lot of poisonous snakes have that. A lot of people think it's red. And that's because red is taken for traffic lights. It's a colour that seems closer than it is. It grabs the attention. It's the colour of the physical, and it's a call to action, i.e. it creates a quick reaction. So it's stimulating. So it's exciting and stimulating. But so its connotation is clear when it's in the context of a traffic light, because it's just basically saying, get ready, action is required. And then the final one here, asking, what do you think is the colour of fun, frivolity, and immaturity? And the colour of that is orange. So the reason I mention that is because imagine that you were in an airport and you were waiting for your flight, and a pilot was to come along, and instead of wearing a safe, solid, trustworthy navy blue uniform, or an unemotional grey uniform, or an efficient black one, they are wearing a bright orange uniform. I don't know about you, but I think I might be a little frightened. I don't want a pilot that is fun and frivolous. So hopefully that can bring to life a little bit about the psychological mode that I'm talking about, that's associated with actual colours and hues. So then if we move on to the second part, which is about what is colour harmony, the colour effects system recognises the links between patterns of colour and personality, which then influences mood and behaviour. So, as I've sort of highlighted, but this is hopefully a little bit making more sense now, 4 families of colour have been identified, and they directly relate to personality types. And every colour in a family harmonizes with all the colours in that group. And so the groups are group 1, group 2, group 3, group 4, and each has a specific balance of shade, tone, and tint. So 2 of those families are cool in nature. They have some blues in there and a bit of grey, a bit of extra grey, and 2 are warm in nature, which have got yellow in there. And each group has got the full variation of the spectral hues. So you can't say, oh, if it's pink, then I'll need to go into this particular group. They've all got a pink, they've all got a yellow. They just have different versions of that hue. But the important thing here is not just about the type of color that you're looking at in a brand or a logo or a packaging or whatever it is that you're wanting to apply this to. It's the mix of color families. Because if you start to mix colors from group 1 with group 2, then the negative aspects of the color are what comes to the fore. Whereas if it stays pure to one color family, the positive aspects of that are what is most prominent. So here's a little example. Have a little look at these 6 colors, and perhaps don't overthink it, because remember, a lot of our responses are subconscious or instinctive. But one of these colors does not belong with these other colors. So one color is incorrect, it does not belong in this group of colors. 5 of the colors are in the same family, and one of the colors is not. So I don't know if you've had a little think. And one of the ways that I judge this is if it feels different on your eyeball, which sounds weird, but is it more recessive? Is it coming at you? Is it seemingly moving away further? Is it just somehow not fitting in? I don't know if you have all come to this conclusion, but the incorrect color was the top right hand side. The previous color, have a look again, is a very cold blue. And the rest of these colors are very warm. They have yellow in them, whereas this is a very cold blue top right. And then when we look to see it correctly, you can see that hopefully this blue is also got yellow in it, and it fits more comfortably with the other colors. So this is what I would call a harmonious color palette. So continuing on then to apply the theory to brands and comms. This can be done in a kind of a top-down or bottom-up. I always get a bit muddled by that expression, but ultimately you can use the psychology of color to take us to the authentic personality of a business or a brand by developing a brand color palette. So starting at the beginning, you can agree in a brief, like you would in a creative brief, the brand personality, the qualities to communicate. And this can then indicate a color family and the hues within that would create a harmonious and on-brief color palette. At the same time, which is probably, as a qualitative researcher, most of us would use color analysis as part of our day-to-day. It could be trying to interpret a color in some comms or improving a brand color palette by identifying what is being communicated, either by the hues themselves or the color family. Is there a color that's sticking out like a sore thumb? Is it not working? I mean, obviously, we've all got a lot of stories around where there's been an incorrect use of a color in whether it be advertising or other comms materials, packaging, when it's in an international situation where in one culture it just means something completely different, which is not what was intended. But generally speaking, if you're examining comms or advertising or in-store messaging or zoning or whatever it happens to be, you can analyze with the system what it's communicating, what's the effect on mood and behavior, and how can it be improved. So if there's a color that's not working, what would be a better color, etc. or it could be the color's fine, but it could be in the wrong color family. So it could be too cold or too warm, doesn't fit with the rest of the gown. And this is just an example here of some color recommendations that I would put together to help create a harmonious color palette. So, you know, in the way that you have Pantone chips as a sort of a universal way to identify a particular color or hue, you would have that quite handily, or CMYK for printing requirements. You'd want the hex values for web design, RGB for digital or whatever. And then within the feedback, there'd also be recommendations on materials, etc. I won't bore you with all of that, but it comes with a, you know, a full application of how the colors and the color families would be applied. So then the personality and that comes from these 4 color families, different personality types, their associations, like materials, like font, all works together. So if I just take you briefly through what the 4 groups are, this is group 1. So these colors are very warm, they're clear, they're often tints, meaning they contain white and they contain a bit of yellow. More often are pastels. There's nothing dark or deep or foreboding about these colors. They're very youthful. The personality is externally motivated. It's warm, it's charming, it's friendly, it's light. If it was a noise, it would be happy, tinkly laughter. It's enthusiastic, it's practical, frivolous, immature, and insubstantial. So in all of these, there's positives and negatives, like everything. Nothing is purely good or purely evil. There's often a bit of both in things. You know, its mood is quite fun, it's quite casual and informal. Materials would be delicate gold, very shiny things, modern furniture, light wood, cane, sheer materials. Shapes are rounded, you know, it's you know, the color is in a round shape. And if fonts are there, they tend to be very youthful and rounded. And then we have these, which I've plucked off the interweb as examples of brand logos that I feel fit into this group 1. They're gentle, they're fresh, they're warm, primary colors, rounded shapes and fonts, youthful, young at heart brands. This is purely my interpretation. I haven't done any work in any of these, you know, on these guys' strategies or colorways or logo work. It's just my sort of way of bringing it to life for you in terms of how these have that in common. So then on to group 2. The colors are cool, they're subtle, they're soft. They contain gray. So this is quite a cool grade, very classy, calm, quiet, soft, understated, sensitive, a bit shy, potentially could be seen as a bit aloof or elitist. This is all about quality, the touch of this, cashmere, plain, platinum, white gold, smooth antiques, soft oval shapes, delicate font, more often with a serif. So here are some examples. This group 2, they tend to be used much more with ladies' wear boutiques, for jewelry, for makeup, where, you know, things were required to be feminine or elegant or classy or expensive. So then we've got group 3, which you may recognize as being my previous example on the harmony exercise. So this group, this is very warm, quite quirky, more like a tertiary color, quite offbeat, quite complex, because they tend to have yellow, black, or red in them in combinations, if you've ever done art or color theory. So they're very complex. They're very externally motivated, energetic, quite earthy, solid, abhor flimsiness, quite questioning, can be intense, strong sense of justice. So material preferences are very important around fit, natural materials, so linen, matte, not shiny, linen tweed, corduroy suede, old gold, chunky things, chunky woods, chunky jewelry. Shapes are solid, rounded rectangles, and solid and substantial fonts. So these are some examples that I've pulled out that I feel would be group 3 branded logos. So you've got, you know, warm yellows, warm reds. You know, UPS is quite unusual in that it uses brown in its logo, together with gold, gold and yellow. And, you know, it's very fitting, great colours for them. Brown is the colour of reliability, support and seriousness. Yellow for friendliness and confidence. So, yeah, it's not really quite right for some of his competitors, but perhaps UPS can say these are authentic values for them. So quite often this group 3 are, you know, they're very warm, they're solid, they're dependable. So a lot of retailers use group 3 colours, a lot of service brands, I would say, for this group. And then we've got group 4, very cold colours, very dramatic. They have a lot of blue. This is the only group that's got pure white and pure black in it. It's very dark or very intense. And the personality is internally motivated, but it's very cool. It's very focused, dramatic, sharp, triangles, demands respect, precise, expensive, sophisticated. It's like Hollywood glamour and diamonds. But it can be considered to be uncaring, very expensive and very unfriendly. So black leather, patent leather, silver, black pearls, chrome, contemporary design, modern design, spacious, uncluttered, minimalist, sharp, abstracted shapes, and fonts are modern, dramatic, and sans serif. So here are some examples. Quite often just the pure black and white here. It's typical of high-end designer brands and to those that aspire to this colorway, but also some cold blues in there, quite often used by tech and pharma, and then maybe a neon pink, which is in this group if it's more of a fashion brand. So, you know, a lot of drama. It's very smart. It's very sharp. No nonsense, uncompromising, and triangles. Okay, so I'm coming towards the summary now. So in terms of applying color effects, it's about applying the theory for better comms, because if you have a clear and authentic color palette, you are communicating as you wish, as is the brief, as is the brand intending. Because each color and color combination communicates something. A harmonious color palette will give a clear and unambiguous message, and the hues is an extension of the brand personality. And if the colors are a model of color families, it gives a confused message, and at worst, the negative attributes of a color speak the loudest. And for my final slide, this is a slide I put together, which is purely my view. So I must sort of raise the caution, the caveat. It is absolutely my view. I worked at McDonald's years ago. I haven't worked on any of the recent strategies. So without any knowledge of this change in strategy, so I don't know if you recall, obviously you've still got the golden arches, yellow, and the warm red as part of their livery, but they started to change this back in 2009 to include the right hand side very deep dark green. And the first time I drove past and I saw this, I nearly honestly, I'm obviously sad because I love colour, nearly crashed the car because I thought, bloody hell, because to me it also looked, it was so dark, sorry to swear, it was so dark, it looked almost black. And I immediately thought about, you know, nature's dangerous colours, our buzzy friends. You know, when you read about it, the change to dark green was to emphasize the reputation of being environmentally responsible, to provide a greener, more environmentally friendly and healthy image. They changed their packaging to be a lot more sort of obvious cardboardy. But for me, on the left, with my color, applied color psychology hat on the left, that's a very harmonious color palette, which absolutely, you know, warm red and yellow, single-minded message of a friendly, warm, fun, and exciting junk food place experience. And then on the right, dark, cold green with a warm yellow, which is a mix of group 3 and group 4. So for me, the more negative aspects of the hues rather than the positive ones are emphasized. So the anxiety of yellow, the stagnation and enervation of the green. I don't know if you agree with me, but that's my opinion. And just trying, because I was trying to think of something where I could give you an example of sort of perhaps color dissonance. So that's my last slide, just to say, I hope I explained it. It's a bit of a romp. I'm sorry if I've been gabbling. And just how it is incredibly useful to understand brand communications. It's a great way to evaluate color schemes, as well as developing new or amending old color palettes. It's quite unnerving. I'm going to stop share now. It's a little bit unnerving. Hopefully you heard that. So if anyone would like to ask a question or make a comment, maybe put your camera on and your audio on, or if you're shy, just the audio.
Anyone? I'm sure there are lots of questions.
It's Jeff. Hi. More an observation is I wish I'd spoken to you before I did the work on Egger for their entire catalogue rebranding and website rebranding around their wooden collectibles and kitchen outfits and things like that.
What was the brand, Jeff?
Egger wood from Austria, Tyrol. So
right.
they have a lot of red and black in their corporate presentation, and white to make sure that then the warmth of the brown wood comes out and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Cladding and wooden cladding and kitchen outfits, and they moved to black with shades of light this year for they do that every 2 years, so it's the second time we've done it. So before the next time we'll have a chat. I'd
love to. Sounds great.
Yeah, have a look. It's great. No, but thank you. I really enjoyed that. It's really useful.
Thank you.
Thought-provoking. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome.
Annabelle, you had your hand up.
Yeah. Oh, hang on a minute. Oh, yeah. Hi. Just because I was going to say hello. I know what it's like when you see.
Hi, Annabelle.
And hi, Maria. And I just wanted to say as well, just really loved that. Actually, loved hearing about all of that, and it's just always great to hear sort of a different way of looking at things that we think about, or things that might be in our subconscious, and how that kind of plays into it. And as somebody who based their logo on a happy pea, I'm feeling quite good that hopefully that gives an aura of calm and happiness.
Oh, well, that's great. I mean, that's the thing about color, is that we all, you know, most of us see all the colors of the rainbow, and everybody thinks they know about color. And then so designers don't like it when I get brought in, because they have their own way of doing things. And typically their pop of color, as they call it, is in another color group. Judith, you were nodding there, so you've got your hand up.
Yeah, that was sort of my question actually, which is how does this differ from sort of just a design perspective on colour, and in that case, how do you deal with that? Because if you're coming in and going, okay, well, the psychology of this is this, and then developing, well, actually,
it is a bit of a tricky pancake. I mean, if you know, we've all had to be in meetings where everyone's got a different opinion about color. Everyone's got their own associations with color. You know, we've all had the chairman wandering in and wanting something to be changed because his wife likes that color, or wants it changed because she doesn't. So I think the thing with designers is that it just depends on the designer. And I mean, I give my opinion, and I'm not there, and I'm not going to bang people over the head and say you have to follow this, you know, because it's the same with all advice as a consultant, that you can take it or leave it. But they tend to not particularly want to buy into it, mainly because, you know, if you look up the color effects theory, it's quite hard. You know, there's a lot of written papers about it, but you can't. It's not like a Pantone system or a natural color system. It's not something that they can take off the wall. And for, you know, in my experience, if they create a color palette, and I'm asked to look at it, and I say, oh, that looks great, and it's communicating this, but it's got one color is not in the right color group. I could, if you give me the color references, the Pantone or the hex codes, I can adjust it and tell you what it could be. But of course, designers don't want to tell me what that is, and so generally it doesn't get done because they get all huffy and just say, well, I don't know how to change it, so I'm the one who should change it, or whatever. So it is just one of those things. But I think if people buy into the theory in terms of which is what I was trying to do at the beginning, in terms of explaining where it comes from, then hopefully, you know, they can appreciate it. And, you know, there's no reason why, if you want to have, you know, a surprise color or pop of color or whatever they call it, you know, which seems to be ad infinitum, like a strong pink or orange, but you can get a pop of color within a color palette quite easily. You don't have to go outside of your color group. But, you know, they don't want to adjust the way they do things so much. It's a bit tricky.
That's kind of brings me to my next question, which is, how do you actually apply this in a practical sense? I mean, is this something that only you can do because you have this?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, there's a number of us have been trained in the system, so there are color effects consultants out there. I don't know that anyone else is a qualitative researcher. They tend to, most often when they're trained, get into design, interior design more than anything. So choosing paint colors and decor for, you know, for a client who wants to redecorate a room or a house or whatever. Yeah, I mean, I guess that's the rub of it, in that I trained in this system, and it's not very well known, and I can apply it, but yeah,
but we can't.
No, because I'm trained in it and you're not. I'm not being funny, but
no, I mean, that was my question. Yeah, but as a takeaway.
Yeah. But you can absolutely appreciate, and I do training. I mean, you can, everyone. I mean, when I was doing those exercises, like, did you spot that was a cold blue versus a warm blue?
I did, actually. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that's your basic principle. So
Yeah,
I mean, what, you know, that's how you start by, is this a cold color, is this a warm color, and then it's like, has it got gray in it? Is it, and like everything, it's context. So you know, it's very difficult. If I hold this up and I say, what type of orange is this? It's very hard to say, even for, you know, someone who's got the trained eye like myself.
Yeah.
But if I was to put it together with another color, it's how those colors work together, how they talk to each other. You know, are they enhancing and bringing out the better qualities, or are you seeing all its wrinkles and crinkles and it's looking a bit sorry? Sorry, Lucy.
Okay, thank you. It's really interesting.
Quick question, Annabelle, I think you had one as well, but which is about, I know when we went through the ICG brand logo development, people were seeing different colours depending on what's computer they were using or whatever.
Yes.
So how do you deal with that? So the printed version is not
Oh,
necessarily the
that is
same.
that is one of the trickiest things, because as you rightly said, how your monitor is set up, and also, you start off with one person's blue is another person's turquoise is another person's teal, because they just use different language and they see different things. Then you've got the situation where, as you say, the monitor is different. There's also the situation where, are you in natural daylight? Are you under warm lights? Are you under those horrible white lights that I hate? What is the lighting, and then what is the context? So that is why you've got your Pantone references, your hex references, because then that's what and that's if you've ever worked with a client in that, where they are, I mean, it's more, I suppose, an advertising thing, but where clients saying the brand logo are these colors and you have to replicate these across all advertising, and the production department is being driven insane because they can't quite get it right, or whatever it happens to be. So there is these minor adjustments, and that's why you've got the classifications to help people to see that. And that is absolutely the thing, because it's not just then your monitor, it's your printer. Your printer will do different. My Epson printer will do different from somebody's HP. So it is a bit challenging, and but somewhere along the line you have to sort of say, okay, we're in the right ballpark. Annabelle, did you have a question? Sorry.
It's only it's just a quick one. Also, I was just going to say that because I learned this tip recently, and I think it's really interesting. Apparently, on a paint chart, when you get your decorating, apparently they all work tonally across ways. So you get your family of colours downways, but they work tonally across ways.
So what's this? Sorry, I didn't hear the first bit.
So just that thing about tone, and what you were saying about those families of colours.
Yes, yeah.
Colours, how they work. Apparently on a paint chart.
Oh, on a paint chart, yes.
They actually work tonally across ways. So rather than the family of colour downwards, which is I thought that was quite interesting. But my question is not that. My question is, so how do you know that when colours, I think it's quite hard to know, like when they've got sort of grey, and then what do you look at the makeups of the colour? Do you look at like how much sort of cyan, magenta, or that sort of stuff they've got? And do you look at those? The sort of tone codes and things like that to work out which have got yellow tints and grey tints.
You can, because there are all those codes within all those numbers and letters. But I do it by eye. My first port of call is my eye, because as I say, I've trained, my eye's been trained to do it. So I can, if you put two Pantone chips, give them me two Pantone chips, I can tell you which is the warm one, which is the cool one. I can tell you which one's got grey in it, or blue in it, or red in it. So that's partly from experience, but it's because of the training, I suppose. And it is in the coding of those things if you're unsure. Because I don't know because I've got some Pantone books. I don't know if you've ever seen them, but they are, they are set out in a very particular way. And then, of course, even within Pantone, you've got the matte set and you've got the glossy set, because colours will change on the material. A colour on a piece of matte linen will look slightly different from on a shiny bit of wood. So it's just sort of taking, adjusting it depending on the material of it. There's a question in the chat, I think, about we want to find out more books, internet training. I can provide a list if you like, if that's helpful. Is that Emma? On that, there is an awful lot if you were to search color psychology, but you can just sort of drown in it. there's some very good books. There's one, the original book with the original person who, she's a very elderly lady now, but you can get, if you can see that. It's called The Beginner's Guide to Colour Psychology by Angela Wright. And on Amazon, it's all secondhand copies or because it's out of print. But that's, if you like, the start point. And there's another one with a lady called Karen Haller, who's done which is more recent, The Little Book of Colour, How to Use Psychology of Colour to Transform Your Life. Oh, I think the fact that I'm on, I'll put them in a little thing anyway, if you want to, if you want me to direct you to things.
Thank you.
If that's helpful.
Yeah, it's just that I know when you punch something into Google, you could get so much that I don't want to feel overwhelmed. I'd rather have your recommendation.
No, you're welcome. And you know, it's a shame really, because I really believe in this theory, but the Colour Effects website is now under construction. So there was loads of really good and useful stuff in there. It wasn't the most pretty of sites, but there was a lot of fantastic information. But it's been under review for a while. I think Angela is quite an elderly lady now. But if you know, I do training in it, but obviously I would say that, wouldn't I? But because I'm trained to do the teaching on this particular topic, on this particular theory, I should say. But I'm sure there's other systems and stuff out there. But
thank you. I think we're running out of time. If there are any other questions, speak quickly. Okay, well, you know where to find Maria. She's an ICG member, obviously. So do carry on asking her questions. I hope that's okay, Maria.
Yes, of course. Contact me anytime. I'd be very happy to chat to you or reply to your email.
Okay.
I love talking about colour, so
Thank you so much for running it. It was great. So thank you. I'll circulate the recording. I know lots of people wanted to hear it that couldn't attend today. So
okay,
thank
great.
you. And thanks
very
everybody
much
for coming.
Thank
Bye.
you. Thank you.